Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Closet Kitchen. I'm Salem Rain. As you can see, it's St. Patrick's Day, which also happens to be my birthday. So I thought this would be a great opportunity to show you how I make my birthday cupcakes. It's a super delicious and moist vanilla cake batter. And I'm also going to show you how I make buttercream icing. So let's get going. Turn your oven on to 350 degrees. The next thing you'll want to do is prepare your cupcake tins. This recipe makes 12 cupcakes. They turn out looking like this. Completely evenly baked, smooth, flat tops, because we're going to bake them a very particular way. I don't use cupcake liners. You end up ripping off large chunks of the cupcake. I want to eat the cupcake. We're going to bake it in a bain-marie today. That's a French word, but it's not a scary thing. All you need to do is find a pan that is deep enough to house your cupcake tin. Boil water. We're going to pop this into the oven once the cupcake tin is prepared and the batter's in there. Stick it in the oven and fill it with water. Not the cupcake tin though. About 2/3 of the way up the cupcake tin. What it does is it allows a very, very, very even cook of your product. Typically it's used to make custards or cheesecakes and souffles, things that are delicate in that nature, but you can also use it to make cakes. Of course, if you don't want to use a bain-marie or water bath, you don't have to. I just like creating extra work for myself sometimes. I get super anxious and the need for perfection kicks in, even though I know that doesn't exist. The reason why I thought I'd try using the water bath is because vanilla cake batter tends to have a higher fat and sugar ratio. So what happens when it bakes is it tends to develop more of a crust. So it colors a little bit more when you bake it. And to prevent that, I'm doing the water bath, which is a lot more work, and you can get around that by using cupcake liners. If you want to do that, go ahead and do that, or just put them in cupcake liners. Save yourself all the hassle, and save yourself the time. Put some butter in there. Really get in there. And then we're going to lightly flour it. Same thing with the other one. Get that butter in there. Get it all in there. Evenly coat that tin with butter. You put some flour in it. And then we're going to tap it out in the sink. Coat that pan with a little bit of flour. And tap it out. That's it. Yeah. For the buttercream frosting, I like to chop up the butter. This is 1 cup of butter. Put it in a bowl. And I like to put it on top of the stove. So while the oven is heating up, it will just melt this butter, get it to the consistency that we're going to need to mix up our buttercream frosting a little bit later. We're not using any fancy machinery to make the cupcake batter or the frosting. We're just using a spoon. And it's going to come out super professional. Let's boil that water and get it ready for the bain-marie while we mix together our batter. That's the stuff you're going to need to mix up your batter. Let's get going. In this bowl, I have 1/2 cup of butter that I've cut into little cubes to make it a little bit easier to work with. So let your wet ingredients come up to room temperature. 1 cup of sugar. 1 cup plus 1/3 cup of all-purpose flour. I have 1 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. 1/2 cup of full-fat sour cream. This is the ingredient that is going to keep these cupcakes super, super moist. Here I have 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract, 2 eggs that I have whisked up a little bit. Let's get mixing. I start by mashing this butter with a spoon, just to get it nicely creamed a little bit. Oh, Leppy the Leprechaun's here. Leppy, he's a leprechaun. He likes to help out in the kitchen, but honestly, he just creates a lot of mischief, so we'll see how the day progresses here in the kitchen with Leppy. I don't know. It's already soft enough to work with. We can add our 1 cup of sugar to the 1/2 cup of butter. I like to add the vanilla at this point. What you want to do is mix up your wet ingredients with the butter really, 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 really well first, because when we add the dry ingredients, at that point, we don't want to overmix the batter, but this is a great time to really, really cream this butter and the sugar and the eggs and the vanilla and the sour cream. Ready to add the 2 eggs. Half a cup of sour cream, full fat. That's what you want. It's pretty smooth. There's no huge chunks of butter or anything clumped together. We put some air into it. Ready for the dry ingredients to be added. I like to put it through a sifter just to make sure that there's no clumps of anything getting into this batter. We don't want to overmix the batter once we've added the dry ingredients. The flour, baking powder, and salt. These are the clumps we don't want. Mash it in, mix it all together. Don't mix this for any longer than 2 minutes. Scrape from the bottom of the bowl up to the top. It's done. Using the same spoon, spoon it into your muffin tins. That's all you need to put in there. Just about halfway full. Give them a few light taps. Good enough. Leppy! I'll wash you off. That's better. Stay away from all the appliances. Always pushing all the buttons and playing with all the dials and things all the time. The cupcakes are ready to go into the oven. I can only do 1 tin at a time because our oven's too small. They cook for 24 to 28 minutes, depending on your oven. In my oven, they take 26 minutes. So that's what I'm going to put the timer on for. I'm going to put this pan with the 1 cupcake tin in the oven. Take your boiled water and fill that large pan 2/3 of the way up that cupcake tin, but don't make it all the way to the top so the water gets into the cupcake molds themselves. 26 minutes. The cupcakes have baked. Mine baked for 20 minutes, but I would check them at 18 minutes. They'll probably bake anywhere between 18 to 22 minutes, depending on your oven. Now let's continue watching me be awkward with the water bath, or bain-marie. While the cupcakes are baking, let's make our buttercream frosting. The butter has softened to a point where it is exactly where I want it to be. Nice and creamy and easy to work with. We've got our 1 cup of softened butter. I have 3 cups of icing sugar, 2 tablespoons of whipping cream or heavy cream, and in this tiny glass dish I have a 1/2 teaspoon of peppermint and mint extract. Of course, if you wanted to make this a vanilla buttercream, you could just add a half of a teaspoon up to a teaspoon of vanilla, and that would be lovely as well. I'm putting this flavor in because it's St. Patrick's Day, the mint theme seems to work. You don't even have to add any flavoring. I like to just whip the butter around a little bit. Always sift your icing sugar. You don't want to add icing sugar with clumps into your butter because it's just going to be harder to get those clumps of icing sugar out. I always sift it as I add it slowly to the butter. About a cup at a time. Just mix it in, cup by cup, gradually. If your butter is soft enough, you won't have that difficult of a time mixing this up just with a spoon. It's mixed together quite nicely. If you are having a hard time mixing your butter and your icing together, you can always add a little bit at a time of your 2 tablespoons of cream. Another cup of icing sugar, sifted. Now he's on top of the kettle. I'll add my half of a teaspoon of the peppermint and mint extract. And a little bit more of the cream. I only have 1 more cup of icing sugar to add, and the last of the cream. And look at it. There's no bumps, no lumps, nothing. It's so smooth. It's a thing of beauty. You don't need anything fancy to make a simple buttercream icing. And the last cup of icing sugar. And the last of the cream. Get down from there. Nice and light. Super smooth. Once again, wash them off again. The cupcakes are almost finished. I can tell they're done because I've touched the top of them. I reached in there safely and put my finger on top of the cupcake and it sprung back up. You can also do a toothpick test. Just stick the toothpick into the middle of the cupcake. If you pull it out and it comes out clean, that means they're not doughy in the center. If it does come out all gunky, leave them in for a couple more minutes. Wear oven mitts and be safe when you're taking out that water bath. And safely lift the cupcake tray out of that water bath and let them cool for a couple minutes. Get off of there! When I let them cool on the cooling rack, I like to actually let these cool on their faces versus on the bottoms because this is quite soft and warm and I just don't want them sticking to the rack or the countertop or whatever you're letting the cupcakes cool on, because this has the most amount of texture to it. It won't stick to anything like the bottom will. The cupcakes are almost done in the oven, and then it'll be time to decorate. Leppy, get away from the blender! Leppy! Oh, don't worry. He's a leprechaun. He's magical. He'll be back. I made my own decoration. It was a bit of a nightmare, but it did turn out okay. Here's what I did. I found a shamrock design I liked online, and I made this template and taped it down to the counter. Then I took a piece of wax paper and tape that over top. Then I made a simple royal icing, outlined the design with the royal icing, and then filled it in. I let them dry overnight, and I'm going to now scrape them off using this little thing and place it on top of my cupcakes. The cupcakes have cooled and they're ready to ice. What I like to do is, if this buttercream icing has been sitting around for a little while and has got hard again, I like to warm it up by mixing it up. And it will be at a lovely consistency again to put in to your piping bag, which I have put inside of this thermos because it fits nicely inside of here, and it makes it easier for me to put the icing in, so I don't have to fight with holding the bag and spooning the icing in. I'm using a relatively large piping tip. It has these little serrated spokes on it. Kind of looks like a tulip with fangs. Stuff it into your bag. So easy. So efficient. Handy and helpful. I'm ready to decorate the cupcakes. This is the fun part. You can do whatever you want. Have fun with it. Be super creative and stick any kind of candy on top, any kind of chocolate, any sort of sprinkle, colored icing. The options are limitless. Have fun, create, and enjoy. I'm taking these cupcakes to a 2-year-old's birthday party in under an hour from now. So I'm going to quickly decorate these ones and run out. I'm making them look like little rainbows and clouds. Just little marshmallows, a little squirt of buttercream icing, and a little candy ribbon that looks like a rainbow. These work too. They're kind of cute. Make these cupcakes for any occasion, not just for birthdays. I hope you enjoy and share the recipe. I told you he'd be back. See you again next time.